What's going on, guys? So I just reached level 100 and I figured I'd make a final build video before I respec for Uber Lilith. So this build is based on dealing AoE damage and doing dungeons, so I'm going to have to respec into like a single target type build and try my luck against Uber Lilith. So without further ado, I'll go into the stats, advanced stats, gear, skills, Paragon, and I'll do a dungeon at the end as I've done in previous videos. And yeah, so starting off here with the stats, mainly focused on dexterity for the skill damage increase. And I have almost 11,000 attack power, 5,200 armor, and almost 17,000 life with my current build without even using rubies as the sockets here. For the advanced stats, I have a 41% crit chance, and a lot of damage to crowd control, vulnerable, some overpower, but mainly vulnerable and crowd control, in addition to some bonuses to healthy, injured, and 176% damage with core skills, which is Twisting Blades, level 9. Defensively, I got some life on kill with my helmet, 20% dodge, which is pretty nice, and some decent damage reduction, 43.6% damage reduction from close. In addition, I use Dark Shroud, which gives me another like 40% once you have the 5 shadows, and 19.8% lucky hit chance bonus. For the gear, so I really haven't found many upgrades since like level 85 or so. But currently this is what I'm using. My helmet, I like the gain armor every time I deal damage, so that's helpful, with the socketed topaz for damage reduction while controlled impaired. I don't know if I'm going to change this to rubies, because I don't know if you get controlled impaired by Uber Lilith, but I guess I'll mix and match once I get there. Attack speed, max life. This one I have critical strikes with marksman skill, give me a Dark Shroud, so I'm thinking about not even using Dark Shroud as a skill in my skill bar here, because I get free ones anyway. So I gotta see if I'm gonna respec that when I go against Lilith, but it was helpful against enemies and mobs in dungeons. So I got damage reduction from close, max life, imbued skill damage, and damage with dual-wielded weapons. Gloves, I have the critical strikes with core skills, give me about 23% more attack speed, lucky hit chance, crit chance. These gloves are really nice. I would have liked more attack speed, but everything else is pretty solid. My pants here, basic kills, 20% damage reduction. I don't know if I'll change this out for something else when I fight Lilith. Maybe the barrier or the immunity might be helpful. Dodge chance, damage reduction from close, max life, and damage reduction in general. Max on that, 10.7%, which is what I showed before here. All damage reduction. Boots, dealing direct damage to a vulnerable enemy, has a chance to daze it. So this is actually helpful for bosses to try to get that stagger meter up. So I'm going to keep that. I don't know if the resistances are too helpful, but I have them anyway with the dodge chance and dash. So this one I really like. It gives me a ton of core skill damage, dexterity, all stats, vulnerable damage, and then the double twisting blades aspect, and 60% vulnerable damage, as well as socketed with emerald for critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies as well. Amulet, this one's really nice. 3 to all agility skills, 3 to all exploit, or 3 to the exploit passive, which I'll show my skills. Perfect on the dexterity, almost 11% more dex, which allows me to get over 900 here. And the 21% cutthroat skill damage is very nice as well. Ring, max life, crit strike, cold damage, which I don't need, but I haven't found an upgrade for this yet. And then I have, when you evade, you get use stun grenades on your enemies, which is also helpful for this stagger and for just dungeon mobs in general, because I do 60% more damage to stunned enemies, which I will show I actually missed it here. You deal 60% increased damage to stun enemies. Distant enemies also have a 8% chance to be stunned, but it's not really why I use it. It's more for the 60% increased damage. Second ring, basic skills give me more attack speed, which is helpful for the Dark Shroud proc with my marksman puncture skill. Max life, max energy, crit chance, and physical damage. My weapons, I like using this one, Ashira's dagger, for the attack speed and lucky hit chance, as well as damage to crowd control enemies. Could be better, I'm sure, but this is the best I've found so far. And then this one here, where you deal increased critical strike chance to injured enemies, and while you're healthy, you gain more crowd control duration, which is helpful for my stuns and dazes and things like that I've been using. In addition, I have core skill damage again, all stats, close enemies damage, and dazed enemies damage, which this dash can daze enemies. Okay, on to the skills here. So I decided to max puncture to see how that works, and it's been working pretty decently. It's nice having a little bit of extra damage, and with the insane attack speed I have, it actually adds up. Fundamental puncture, enhanced puncture, max twisted blades, enhanced twisted blades, and the advanced twisting blades. Max sturdy for more damage reduction. And this is really helpful. 507 life restored every time I critical strike a close enemy, which is often. And I have some damage reduction while inflicted with control impairing effects, like my gear with the topazes. Kind of stack that. I only have 1 point in dash, actually, a hard point, and then I have 7 skill points for with the items. And this I just like this for the charge cooldown reduction. Over here, 3 in weapon mastery for increased damage to healthy enemies. Discipline dash, enhanced dash. Only 1 point into Dark Shroud. And I like the movement speed it gives, so instead of the crit strike chance, because I'm already at like 40%, so that's more than enough for me. This is the exploit one, so basically I get 18% more damage with that +3 from my amulet, which is awesome. And then I deal 9% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. This one I'm all going to respec when I fight Uber Lilith, but shadow damage to stun generates energy on kill when they're infected by shadow damage. So that really helps restore my energy, so I could use Twisted Blades more often. Shadow Imbuement, just have that maxed for the explosion damage for AoE, and just critical strike chance against injured enemies affected by Shadow Imbuement, and blended Shadow Imbuement. Over here, being that I'm using Shadow Clone, I'd put the Supreme Shadow Clone and Prime Shadow Clone for some more damage, and being unstoppable helps actually a lot when you're frozen or stunned or any kind of crowd control. Adrenaline Rush, just for 1 point in there for to get the haste, which gives me more attack speed when I am below max energy, and then movement speed when I am above. And then I use Close Quarters for increased attack speed, and you deal 30% more damage against crowd controlled enemies. Alright, so on to the Paragon here. Okay, we'll start here. Now I got all these rare nodes, Lawless, Skillful, any kind of damage nodes and life nodes. I've tried to get as many of those as possible. Cheap Shot, dealing more damage to whenever you are nearby crowd control enemies, which I always crowd control with stuns and dazes and things like that. So I'm dealing 25% damage nearly all the time in dungeons. Devious, Wiles, and I'm using Closer for more cutthroat damage, and you take 10% reduced damage, which is nice. We'll go to the right here first. Spearhead, more damage to healthy enemies. Core skill damage, core skill damage, basic skill damage, basic skill damage. This gives me more crit damage to core skills, plus I get some energy recovery when I critical strike with Twisted Blades. I skipped this one. It wasn't really necessary, I didn't think. A little bit extra armor. And going down here, Hunter Killer for damage to elites, also affects bosses. Max life here. Damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. Exploit weakness. To deal damage to a vulnerable enemy, they take 1% increased damage from you for 6 seconds, up to 15%. And just more damage to injured, vulnerable, and any kind of damage nodes I can get. And this is the one I put here at level 100. I skipped this one. I didn't think it was necessary because this only affects the non-damaged ones, which would be for Twisted Blades would be like the movement speed you get. And then all the way to the left, I use No Witnesses, which deal ultimate skills, or my Shadow Clone deals 30% increased damage and grants you 10% damage for 20 seconds after the cast, which is nice as well, especially if you're using Inner Sight. Gives you that unlimited damage, which I use against bosses, and then I use combo points usually when I fight in dungeons for the movement speed, just to get through the dungeons more quickly. Ruin, more damage to healthy enemies, more damage with knowledge here, and then more life, which this all these life nodes really help me get to around almost 17,000 life, which is nice. So that's that. I've been doing most recent like level 50, whatever, 53, 52 nightmare dungeons here. I'm gonna do this one here in Mallwood, and it's really nice that we could actually teleport here now to these dungeons. And this might be the last dungeon I do in Diablo 4. I'm kind of dungeoned out here, and I'll do my best to kill Lilith. But for now, I'm just gonna show you guys how I run through one of these dungeons and the skill rotations I usually use. Alright, so Dark Shroud, Shadow Imbuement, and here we go. So usually I'll use Dash because I try to affect as many enemies as I can with the Shadow Imbuement, and I forgot to respec back to combo points for the movement speed. I mean, you could really use any of them and they work, Preparation or Inner Sight. Personally, I just like combo points because this one, I used to use a dagger, which I think it was Condemnation, which gave you that extra, the chance to like get 3 combo points instantly, and you deal more damage with core skills with the combo points are maxed at 3. But I decided to go with this build right now, and I like to use combo points anyway because of the movement speed in dungeons. If you want more damage, you could always use Innervate. I just find it's kind of like worthless at times when you're fighting a bunch of enemies because it might proc, like it might fill up when you least need it. So I'll show you guys real quick. So it works now, like, and I could use it on 2 enemies, and then I don't have the movement speed, and then it runs out by the time you get to the next group. So it's much more useful against bosses, and I'll show you guys at the end of. I'm not sure if this one has a boss, but if it does, I'll definitely respec that. Oh, we got a treasure hunt in here. So I usually use Dash, and then I use Evade, which helps me drop those stun grenades. And I do 60% more damage to stunned enemies. So, and while they're stunned, they can't really do damage to me, so I try my best to stun as many as I can. And it's nice maxing puncture actually, because I could just hold down the button. I don't have to click left click, right click on like weaker enemies. I can just hold it down. Plus I get damage reduction when I'm using the 20% damage reduction when I'm using the basic skill with one of my aspects. And I get the free dark shreds. So just from killing this one enemy, get a couple there. And another reason I like to stun is like the enemies can't hit me, so I can build up my dark shroud charges. Now the only, I guess, downside to this build is like when you get hit by the ranged. Like I have decent damage reduction, but like most of it is to close enemies. So those crossbow things, those siege weapons usually deal a ton of damage to me, to be honest. If I don't have my dark shroud charges up. Shoot. I forgot I was doing this event. Oh well. Might not make it. 5 seconds, yeah. Oh, this is actually a little bit of an upgrade, but realistically I'm not getting many upgrades anymore, so I'm kind of bored, to be honest, of Diablo 4 at this point. I might actually skip the Season 1 because I'm kind of bored of this game at this point, unless they change something where you can get like World Stone Tier 5 or something, or let you get like item level 800 plus more often. Oh no. I don't know how the butcher always comes every time I do a build video. So I'm trying my best here to keep the Dark Shroud charges up. This guy doesn't just wreck me. It's crazy. Looking for some health potions here. Oh, we can go right here. Unless he throws a chain and murders me. At least we could use Shadow Clone on him.
gonna stay here. This place reeks.
Okay, I guess he... Does he disappear if you run away from him? I guess there's no boss. But anyway, that's the build. I mean, if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know below. And my next video will probably be my attempt at Uber Lilith, or my billion attempts, because apparently it's very difficult. So we'll see. Thanks for watching, and again, feel free to let me know if you have any questions or comments. Hello.